The ultra wealthy's 8.5 trillion of unrealized gains. Whoa! Unrealized and untaxed. How dare you, Josh? You've become a liberal right from my very eyes. Not, but okay. Americans for Tax Fairness, big lib organization. I'm sure they're a 501c3, which we'll get into here more in just a second. According to an analysis by the Americans for Tax Fairness, American billionaires and centimillionaires, those over 100 million bucks, collectively held at least 8.5 trillion of unrealized capital gains in 2022. Those profits from unsold investments constitute the largest source of income for the super rich. And this is from 2024. This is from 2022. We've had 2023 and 2024, massive markets. So we're probably looking at $10 trillion of untaxed capital gains right now. This is what's interesting right here. Well, income is evenly distributed among American households. Wealth and untaxed capital gains are more concentrated on the super rich. That's why we should tax wealth and not income. But anyway, so here's national income. The bottom 90% of American households control 55% of the national income. Here's national wealth. The bottom 90% of American households control only 27% of national wealth. Here's unrealized capital gains. The bottom 90% controls only 24% of unrealized capital gains. The rest is controlled by the top 10%, which includes a significant basically a fifth of unrealized capital gains goes to billionaires and centillionaires, or 100 millionaires. Crazy. Investors do occasionally sell an asset for a profit and trigger a capital gains tax. But the tax-free status of capital gains becomes final when they are inherited. This is due to a loophole called the step-up basis. Interesting. But when appreciated stocks are inherited, the rules change. The tax is only due on the increase in asset from the time of inheritance. All the earlier gain disappears for tax purposes. So Biden wanted to get rid of the step-up basis, which is stupid. We don't want to see that. And you can see right here, growth of unrealized untaxed capital gains since 1989. For the bottom 90%, it grew about 100%, 150%. For the top billionaires and centimillionaires, whatever, it grew about 700%. All right, that's not good. That's not good. Unrealized gains from property, all right, the bottom 90% right here. The median household is essentially their unrealized gains, the vast amount come from property, where a small amount come from unrealized capital gains on financial assets. For the wealthy people, it's 52% unrealized gains are in financial assets, whereas only 4% from property. All right, let's keep going here because this is interesting. The bulk of national capital gains are never realized and thus never taxed. 48 trillion of unrealized capital gain was out there and was never taxed. Whereas 19.5 trillion was realized and they paid $3.4 trillion in tax. Now, so let's keep going here. So Josh, it sounds like you're in favor of wealth tax. Well, I am. There's an easier way to do it, but someone in favor of wealth tax because I think there's some significant reasons not to tax income, but tax wealth instead. But Europe had a wealth tax, and right here, the reason it did not work that well, it was expensive to administer. It was hard on people with lots of assets but little cash. Yeah, I get that. It distorted savings and investment decisions. I don't buy that. It pushed the rich and their money out of the taxing countries, it says. In fact, France's wealth tax contributed to an exodus of an estimated 42,000 millionaires between 2000 and 2012. I find that somewhat suspect because I was watching this guy, an anti-wealth tax guy from England, talk the other day on YouTube. He says, look at all the people we're losing. These millionaires England is losing. I said, but England doesn't have a wealth tax. So he's talking about how bad a wealth tax is by saying how many millionaires England is already losing, but there's no wealth tax in England. So I'm not sure that France can be contributed explicitly to a wealth tax. These 42,000 millionaires that contribute probably. I think there's probably a lot of other things as well. But anyway, so what this guy says, Gabriel Zuckman from the University of Berkeley, is that the United States would be different because unlike in the EU, it's impossible to freely move to another country or a state to escape national taxes. Existing U.S. law taxes citizens wherever they are. So even if they do sail to a tax-free haven in the Caribbean, they're still on the hook. So I'm all for that, but I want to just show you something here. Let's just look at this. I want to ask you guys something here. How many people actually itemize their taxes? The tax year 2023, itemization rates were about 10%, with about 8 to 10% claiming charitable deductions. Interesting. So 90% of American household tax-paying households don't even itemize. They take the standard deduction. 10% itemize. All right. Let's see here. I want to show you right here. High-income taxpayers are far more likely to itemize and claim charitable deductions. 80% or more of the top category, top income brackets do so. So basically, the vast majority of people in the top bracket, or the vast majority of people don't itemize. The people who do itemize are in the highest tax brackets, and they take the charitable deduction. So if you're not itemizing, you're not getting a charitable deduction either. All right, so I said, well, do rich people pay tax when they give to foundations like the Ford Foundation? In the United States, when wealthy individuals donate money to foundations like the Ford Foundation, which is a 501c3 public charity, they do not pay taxes. No capital gain tax on appreciated assets. And oddly, the Americans for Tax Fairness didn't say anything about the fact that the wealthy can give to 501c3s. Why? Because I guarantee the American for Tax Fairness is a 501c3. They like to get that money too. So if they're so keen on getting people to pay capital gain tax, why not get rid of charitable deductions? Entities. In fact, it's funny because these guys are just explicitly racist because they talk about white people. Why are you here? The unrealized gains of white super rich households dwarf those of black and Hispanic. And then they don't capitalize white, but they do capitalize black. So scumbags. But anyway, I just found that very interesting. So no tax on appreciated assets. So you can give to the Americans for Tax Fairness and not pay any tax. I said, what else? Oh, do they pay estate tax? Donating to a 501c3 organization during one's lifetime or through a will reduces the taxable estate or gift amount, potentially eliminating gift or estate taxes. Interesting. So then it also said, if you leave your estate to Harvard University, which is a 501c3, you generally do not pay federal estate tax. So what we can do, instead of creating a new tax regime, a wealth tax, we just say no more charitable deductions. You can't leave your money to charity without paying a tax. Why not just do that? If you want the wealthy to pay more in taxes, get rid of charitable deductions. That's it, man. But they don't do that because Harvard, Ford Foundation, Rockefeller, these are all scumbag groups. All these guys, all scumbags, all up to no good. We're basically subsidizing their evil, if that makes sense, by giving them massive tax deductions. You think the rich people like Warren Buffett leave their money subject to an estate tax? You're freaking insane. They don't. Why are they only going to leave a little bit to their kids? Because they know it'll be subject to an estate tax. So what they do is they give to the Gates Foundation. And where's the Bill Gates Foundation? Let's see, I don't know. Is a Bill Gates Foundation a 501c3? Let's see here. Is the Gates Foundation a 501c3? Let's see. I don't know. Let's see what Grok. I'm just looking at Grok. It could be wrong. That's not when it comes to other stuff. Is not a 501c3. It is a classified private foundation and is tax exempt. But is tax exempt under Section 501c3, but operates as okay. All right. So as our 501c3s are typically funded, or Gates Foundations, things like that, are typically funded by a single source or family. They donate $60 billion and $43 billion respectively through 2024. They have lower deduction limits for donors. 30% of AGI for cash, 20% for appreciated assets. They face more regulatory, but it's still right here. Donations are tax deductible, all right, but are limited at 30% of AGI for cash and 20% for appreciated stock. This is less generous than deductions for public charities like Harvard. Donors avoid capital gains on appreciated. There you go. Donors avoid capital gains on appreciated assets donated. Yes, indeed. Bequests to the Gates Foundation from a state like donations to Harvard to qualify for an unlimited charitable deduction. Oh my goodness, Warren Buffett, you scumbag. You such a clown. He's such a clown, dude. Bequests to the Gates Foundation from a state like donations to Harvard qualify for unlimited charitable deduction. There you go. Get rid of the charitable deductions. We're subsidizing evil people like the Gates Foundation. 100%. All right, God bless. Love your thoughts. Smash that like button.